simplifying fractions is all about getting fractions that look simplifying, look kind of difficult and weird and unusual, and maybe getting them to feel a bit simpler and a bit more obvious, so that if you want to multiply them or divide that fraction, it gets a bit easier. So imagine we have the fraction, let's say blue, 24 over 30. Now that's fine, it's a nice fraction, it looks okay, but really we want to make it look a bit simpler, a bit neater perhaps. So I think the question to ask when you're doing simplifying fractions is, what do both numbers have in common? And what I mean by that is, what number or what numbers go into both the top side and the bottom side? And if that same number, let's say 2, goes into the top side, as in it divides neatly on the top side and divides neatly on the bottom side, then we know that that number is something they both have in common. So let's try that out. With the number 2, if we divided 24 by 2, we would be left with 12. And then on the bottom side, dividing 30 by 2, we would be left with 15. So we know that one of the numbers that they both have in common in this fraction, 24 over 30, is 2. Now, can you think of any other number that they might have in common? Well, I would say 3 is a number they both have in common. Because if you divided 24 by 3, you would get 8. If you divided 30 by 3, you would get 10. So that's another number we'll add to the list of numbers they have in common. Now I can see another number they have in common. I think 6 goes into 24 and goes into 30. So let's add that to the list. 6 of numbers that they both have in common. Now if we divide 24 by 6, we get, let's see, 4. And then we divide 30 by 6, we get 5. Now, that looks to me the last number that they both have in common. You could try 12, but 12 doesn't go into 30. So the numbers they have in common are 2, 3, and 6. Now if we use the biggest one of those, 6, and divide the top and the bottom, we actually get the simplest fraction. We've completely simplified it because we've used the biggest possible number that they have in common. So the final answer of simplifying 24 over 30 would be 4 over 5, which I think you'll agree is quite a simple, nice, easy to use fraction. Let's try that out again. So this time we have, let's just make one up in yellow. We have 14 over 18. Okay, so what numbers, let's do a separate box, what do both numbers have in common? It's like when you meet someone, you ask, what music do you like, what's your job, and you look for things where you both have things in common. Well, the same with two fractions, the kind of the top side meeting the bottom side is saying, well, what do we have in common? And I would say 14 and 18, they both have, let's say in grey, they both have 2 in common, because the fraction you get when you divide top side, or the numerator, by 2 and divide denominator, which is the bottom side, by 2, what do we get? We get 7 over 9. And actually, we've already done it. That is the simplest fraction we can get it down to, because they don't have 3 in common, they don't have 4 in common. 4 goes into neither of them, actually. So that is the simplest fraction we can get. Let's do one more. So make it a bit bigger. We have, I'm just completely making it up, 36 over 44, should we say? Well, what do they both have in common? I would say one of the numbers is definitely 2, And what are we left with? We are left with 18 over 22. Right. I think we can find another number they have in common. I would say, is 3 a number they have in common? No. How about 4? Well, 4 goes into 36 9 times. So I think we found one. Another thing they have in common, which is 4. So we get 9, and on the other side, 11. And that is the simplest fraction. So we've completely simplified 36 over 44. And you can tell it's the simplest fraction because both numbers are very small and odd, and there's no other number you could divide them both by to get an even simpler number. 11 is a prime number, so we know that it can't get any simpler. And that is how you simplify fractions.